The flat trap is when you buy a flat, but you later discover that you're not allowed to make the internal changes that would massively increase its value. Sounds crazy, right? It's your flat, but you can't touch the layout without the freeholder's consent. And if you don't check this before you buy, you can become trapped. Jin did exactly that. He bought a 2-bedroom flat planning to turn it into a 3-bedroom flat, and the freeholder refused, completely blocked it. But I helped him overturn that decision, and once he got consent, his flat was worth more and rented for more. I've been able to turn 1-bed flats into 2-bed flats in London Bridge, Vauxhall, Battersea, Brixton, West Hampstead, because I've checked one thing before buying: whether the freeholder would actually allow it. That added over £100,000 in value each time. Reconfiguring the layout is one of the biggest ways to add value to a flat, but only if you avoid the flat trap. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to check whether you'll get consent before you buy, so you don't make any expensive mistakes. Part 1, what the flat trap actually is. When you're buying a flat, whether to live in or as an investment, one of the fastest ways to add value is by optimizing the layout. And in most cases, that means adding a bedroom. Turning a 1-bedroom flat into a 2-bedroom flat or a 2-bedroom flat into a 3-bedroom flat can increase the value, boost the rental, and even help you refinance at a higher level. But here's what most buyers don't realize. In a leasehold flat, any structural or layout changes usually require the freeholder's consent, also known as a license to alter. You'll need to do this if you're adding or removing internal walls, changing the layout, like moving the kitchen and creating a new bedroom, adding plumbing or drainage in new locations, making any structural modifications. Even small changes can technically breach your lease without approval, and if you go ahead without consent, the freeholder can force you to reverse the work at your own cost. That's the flat trap. Buying a flat that you're actually not allowed to improve, and it's something we want to avoid at all costs. Buying property is one of the biggest decisions both emotionally and financially. Selling your flat in the future can also change your life. So why not try and make as much money from it as you possibly can so that you can buy your dream home or use that money to do whatever you want to do. If you're buying to live in, then any money you make on the sale will be tax-free as it's your primary residence. So you qualify for primary principal residence relief, which in essence means that you pay no tax on any gain that you've made. For example, my flat in London Bridge that I used to live in, I purchased for £250,000. When I remortgaged it, it got valued at £500,000. I only put down a 10% deposit when I purchased this flat, so if I sold it, I would have made £500,000 less the mortgage outstanding, which was £187,000, so £313,000 tax-free. This is when I realised the power of property. This wasn't overnight and it did take 7 years to double in value, and I decided to hold on to it and remortgaged it onto a buy-to-let mortgage, which meant that I released £188,000 tax-free, and I managed to hold on to this flat in central London. In the future, I plan to reconfigure this flat into a 3-bedroom flat. It used to be a 3-bedroom flat, but the previous owner wanted a bigger bathroom, so they reconfigured it into a 2-bed flat. I will change it back with consent and it'll be worth and rent for a lot more. As an investor, instead of hoping and praying for capital growth, why not force the appreciation in 6 months rather than waiting, say, 6 years? For example, I purchased this 1-bedroom flat in West Hampstead for £303,000. I reconfigured it into a 2-bedroom flat with the freeholder's consent, which I will show you later, which got valued at £450,000 6 months later, not 6 years later. Council flats. When to start checking for consent. Once you've found a flat where the floor plan works, the layout works, and you've seen it in person, this is the moment to check whether the freeholder will actually allow your proposed layout changes. This is the final step before making an offer, and the council-owned buildings, the process is very structured, but different councils do different things. Some councils publish clear rules online. Certain councils make it really easy. They have guidelines on their website explaining exactly what they will and won't allow. For example, I saw a North London council state clearly that they did not allow kitchens to be moved into bedrooms. Completely understandable because it can affect people living above or below. Other councils require an online application form. Most councils will ask for you to submit an online form describing what changes you want to make, why you're making them, existing floor plans, and proposed floor plans. For the existing layout, you can just use the estate agent's plans. For the proposed layout, you can use a simple tool like Smart Draw, or pay someone on Fiverr to draw a clean proposed layout for £25 to £50, or drop me a message and I can refer you to someone that's helped me numerous times. Some councils ask you to email them directly. A few don't have a form at all, they just want an email with the before and after floor plans and a short explanation of the works. For my London Bridge flat, I submitted the online form, attached the estate agent's floor plan and included the proposed floor plan I had made on Fiverr. My council consent blueprint email, I've included this in the link in the description of this video. Hi, I hope you are well. I would like to move the kitchen into the living room to create an open plan kitchen diner and convert the existing kitchen into a bedroom. All the works are internal, no structural walls will be removed or added. Plumbing and electrics will be carried out by qualified contractors using existing pipework where possible. The works will be signed off by London Building Control to confirm compliance with building regulations. I've attached the existing and proposed floor plans. Please let me know if you need any further information. Thanks, Rab. This is really important. If your entire investment relies on a layout change, do not exchange contracts until you have a clear indication the council will grant consent in principle. An email saying this looks fine in principle is usually good enough to proceed. Then once you complete the purchase, you can submit the full formal application. This is exactly how to avoid the flat trap. Private freeholders. How to check if you'll get consent. When you're dealing with private flats, the process for getting consent is completely different from councils, and in some ways much quicker. Private buildings are usually managed either directly by the freeholder or by a managing agent acting on behalf of the freeholder. But the big question is always, how do I actually find out who the freeholder or managing agent is? I have added a link in the description of this video which allows you to download a document which shows you this process. Here are the simplest ways to find out. Ask the estate agent. Most agents will know who manages the building. If they say they don't, then ask the seller via the agent. The seller will receive service charge letters, ground rent demands, notices from the managing agent, so they'll definitely know who the freeholder or managing agent is. Check the notice board in the buildings when you go to view the flat. Look in the entrance lobby or shared hallway. Almost every building has a notice board showing the managing agent's name, phone number, email address. They're required to display this so that residents know who to contact. Private freeholders handle alterations differently. Some will have an alterations section on their website, a downloadable application form, or simply an email address where you can send your plans. But in almost every case, you'll need to provide a short description of the works, the existing floor plan, the proposed floor plan. The exact same information you'd give to a council. Real example, my West Hampstead flat. When I converted my West Hampstead one-bedroom flat into a two-bed, I contacted the managing agent before buying. They replied with their conditions, very reasonable and very typical of a private freeholder. Hi Rab, as you are not altering the structural layout, a surveyor inspection is not required. We would consider the application provided the following conditions are met. Contractors must be qualified, insured and competent. Plumbing work must be certified once complete by Buildings Appointed Contractor, West Hampstead Plumbing. The full works must be certified as complete for our records. £120 fee applies. The heating system must be drained down by the Builders Appointed Contractor. You must indemnify the freeholder and managing agent for any issues arising from the works. These conditions are in place to safeguard the building and its residents. Private freeholders are usually more flexible than councils, but they still need to protect the building and other residents. As long as you are not touching structural walls, your plans make sense, your professionals are qualified, and you follow their conditions, most private freeholders will give consent in principle before you buy, if you ask them correctly. Checking the lease before you waste time. Before you apply for freeholder consent, it's worth checking what the lease actually says about making alterations. So how do you get a copy of the lease? 1. Ask the estate agent. Most agents can get the lease from the seller or from their own file. If they say they don't have it, ask the agent to request it from the seller. The seller will definitely have a copy. Their solicitor would have provided it when they purchased the flat. 3. Download it from Land Registry, the easiest way. You can use the following link. You'll need the property address, debit or credit card, and it's £3 for the title register, £3 for the title plan, and £7 for the lease itself if it's available. Most leases are stored digitally, but occasionally older ones aren't. 4. Ask your solicitor if you've already instructed them. If your offer has been accepted and legals have started, your solicitor can request the lease from the seller's solicitor. What you're actually looking for using my West Hampstead flat as an example, the lease didn't say alterations were forbidden. Instead, it said, you must get the landlord's written consent. Consent must not be unreasonably withheld unless another clause overrides this. This wording is extremely common in UK leases. And if this is what you see, you're in good shape because it means you can make alterations as long as you follow the process and the freeholder's consent is required, but they must act reasonably. This is why checking the lease early matters. You want to confirm that the lease allows the internal changes in principle, even if consent is required. Part 5. What freeholders hate and why consent gets refused. From experience and from helping lots of people through the process, there are a few things that almost guarantee your consent will get refused. And if you avoid them, your chances of getting approval go up massively. 1. A poorly filled out application form. This is the number one reason people get rejected. If your application form is vague, missing drawings, missing details, or doesn't clearly explain what you're doing, most freeholders will simply say no. They don't have the time to chase you for information, so they default to refusal. A clean, clear application instantly makes you look more competent and reduces fear from their side. Moving a kitchen into a bedroom. This is a big one. Freeholders, especially councils, hate when you relocate a kitchen directly above someone else's bedroom. Because of noise, ventilation, and quiet enjoyment issues, some councils won't allow this at all. That's why checking in advance is essential. 3. Creating inner rooms with no direct escape. This is a fire safety problem. An inner room is a bedroom you can only reach through another room, usually through the new open plan kitchen dining space. This is technically allowed, but only if you meet strict building regulations. For example, in my London Bridge flat, I created an inner room, but I installed a water mist system. Basically a sprinkler system that activates if a fire breaks out in the kitchen. This made it fully compliant with building regulations and allowed the layout to be approved. So inner rooms are possible, but only with the right fire safety solution. Removing structural walls. Not impossible, but definitely higher risk. If you want to remove or alter a structural wall, the freeholder will almost always require a structural engineer's report, calculations, drawings showing beams or supports, evidence the building remains safe. The problem is, if the flat is still occupied by the seller, you can't just go cutting holes in the walls to check whether they're load bearing. This adds uncertainty, delays, and cost, and many buyers walk away at this stage. Why this matters. If the changes you want to make fall into any of these categories, you must check with the freeholder before you buy. Otherwise, you risk buying a flat that you can't improve. These are the exact pitfalls that create the flat trap. To avoid the flat trap, you must get consent for your internal works, and you need that consent before you agree to buy the flat. That's how you stay in control instead of getting trapped. Freeholder consent isn't a formality, it's the single biggest factor that can make or break your deal. In my next video, I'm going to show you the exact surveyor blueprint pack I use to get the valuations I need. The same pack that has helped me secure the highest possible valuations on all my projects. If you want to maximize your valuation and avoid getting downvalued, you do not want to miss this video. Hit subscribe so you can get notified when I release that video. I'll see you in the next one.